We're back, besties, and we are diving into the secrets to a successful deficit because 1, we want to share with you our lived experience, and 2, I'm sick of you guys cutting your calories too low, making these common mistakes, and we want to see you thriving, kicking your goals, and we want to help you with actionable things that you can take away from this episode so you know exactly how to nail your next deficit phase. Because the common things we do see are either cutting your calories too low, doing too much cardio, doing too much too soon, like going from not training at all to bam, you're a 75 hard girly, and then you wonder why you can't stick to the routine, and basically not tracking the right data, only following or focusing on scale weight of a random weigh in here and there, and then giving up because it's not telling you what you want. And that is exactly what we want to fix with this episode.
Love it. Get into it, girl.
Well, we might as well start off with what we're doing at the moment because this week actually marks the end of an 8-week deficit phase. And during this phase, I have lost 4 kilos and I have followed a pretty consistent structure. And I think that when you think of weight loss, you can think, how much did you eat? How much was your output? All of those things. So I just want to kind of go through a bit of an overview of what that's actually looked like. And it hasn't been easy, but it's definitely been a predictable thing that we could all do if this is something that you also wanted. Now, the first thing I wanted to say is I spend majority of the year in a maintenance phase. So when it is that I decide to go into a deficit, mentally, I find this easier because it is not what I'm focusing on majority of the time. It is a calculated phase that has a clear start date and a clear end date. And I think that that really helps because if you're just shooting for 1, a vague number, and 1, a vague timeline, mentally that's challenging. So the first thing that I think when it comes to a successful deficit phase for me and for my clients is planning it out, being a little bit more strategic. We're starting on this date, we're ending on this date. Then from there, you can set what's the plan during that time. Stepwise, making sure we're doing enough steps. For me, it's 10,000 steps per day minimum. Output-wise, we're training 4 days per week. Calorie-wise, it's going to be specific to your height, your weight, and all of that stuff. But for me, it's been somewhere around 1,700 to 1,900 calories and prioritizing a high protein intake. Now, all of those things in principle are not super, super restrictive, as in super low, super high output, but I still need to be very consistent.
Of course.
Because something that we can get stuck in is when it comes to a deficit, either being really on the money Monday to Friday and then on the weekends derailing ourselves and then getting really frustrated. And I think that that's something I want to address because if you stick to those things that you know you need to do and you come up with a plan and a timeline, it then just comes down to ticking the boxes.
The main thing for me in this is not spending all of your time chasing a deficit, right? We're both in deficit phases at the moment. How many weeks has it been? Sorry, 8 weeks. 8 weeks, I've lost 6 kilos. I'm super proud of myself. I'm absolutely loving my deficit phase. If I'm being honest, this has been the easiest deficit mentally that I've ever done. Now, over the last 8 years of training or training seriously, I have been pretty much in maintenance phases or a little bit over, gaining roughly 20 kilos over the last, say, 6 years specifically training. Probably done maybe 5 deficits and I have failed at each and every one of them. Maybe bar one other than this one. And the one other was so mentally hard for me. And right now I'm actually doing way more work physically than I was in that previous deficit. But mentally I'm on my shit. I'm feeling good. I'm sleeping good. I'm eating enough food. I'm training. I'm loving my training. My training intensity is through the roof. I'm doing extra cardio, which I usually never do, but I'm loving it. For me, when I look at a deficit phase, I'm not spending the whole year in and out of deficits, shredding for summer, shredding for Europe, shredding for Christmas, shredding for Easter. I'm not doing any of that. I'm spending majority of my year in a maintenance phase or a slight surplus. And then when I do a deficit, maybe every 2 to 3 years, however many years in between the deficits that I do them, they're a lot easier for me. One of the big things of why I found this deficit so easy, I had a clear start date and an end date. So I knew exactly when I was starting this deficit, when it was going to end, and I knew exactly the protocols that I was going to be going through throughout this deficit. I knew exactly how much food I would be eating and the lowest my calories would go, which is similar to you, around that like 1900 to 1700 amount. I knew how much cardio I was going to be doing and how much time it would take me. I knew what my training sessions were going to be like. So I went in with a really clear-cut plan, meaning that I didn't feel surprised. I didn't feel disheartened when the scale weight didn't drop. I just knew if I was to do the things that I promised myself I was going to do each and every day for the duration of the deficit, I would eventually get to my end goal, which I've successfully gotten to.
And the next thing that I think is really important is focusing on the right data, because scale weight, especially as women, is a little bit of a head fuck, to be honest, because if you weigh yourself on a random Sunday morning and then you weigh yourself 2 weeks after and it's the first day of your cycle, and then you weigh yourself again on these sporadic times, it is going to go up and down. And if you correlate that too heavily with how productive the deficit is, it's going to be really confusing. So what I would say is, one, you need multiple data points, because if I think of a deficit, and for us it's body composition changes, right? It's not purely just scale weight, although that is something we're tracking. But the first thing is we're also doing photos. We're also doing measurements sometimes. We're also tracking training data, and all of that is painting a picture of how much progress we're making. Now, when it comes back to weight, and if you're comfortable weighing yourself and you can look at that as objective data, then I would recommend doing it more than less, because I don't care about a singular weigh-in. It's not good data. What is good data is weekly averages. For example, if you were to weigh yourself Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and added it up and divided it by 3, that weekly average is going to be, if you were to graph it, showing you if your weight is trending the way you want. And that is useful to make further decisions with, because it's either going to go down as predicted, or that would be much more useful information for, if you have reached a plateau, what can we do next? We can increase output, more steps, more cardio, or we can decrease food. But if you make quick decisions or rash decisions to drastically cut cardio or drastically increase cardio or drastically cut food because of a singular weigh-in, and you're really reactive like that, you'll actually end up shooting yourself in the foot, because one, you might not have even needed to do that because of the reasons I've mentioned, and two, you don't want to just go and make these irrational decisions where you end up doing something so extreme that you can't maintain it.
Yeah. I also think as well, if you are entering into a deficit phase, you need to understand that you need to track data in some capacity. So if you are not tracking your food and understanding how much energy you are consuming, you're not weighing yourself, you're not doing measurements, you're not doing photos, how do you expect to get anywhere, right? I always say to my clients, I can't make informed decisions to change your programming, your training intensity, your food, your output levels if I do not have some sort of data. And this is something I find people do. They like get into a deficit, but they don't want to weigh themselves. They don't want to measure themselves. They don't want to track their food. They don't want to even like pay attention to the way that they feel or the way that they look in the mirror. And then it's like, well, where the fuck are we going with this? Like, there's actually no point you getting into a deficit. So being open to tracking some sort of data, if the scale weight triggers you, throw them in the bin. We don't give a fuck about it. But then we could do measurements instead, or we could look at the way that we feel, or we could do photos. If you don't want to track your calories and macros because that triggers you, okay, you don't need to track your calories and macros. We can follow the hand plan. We can follow a portion control guide. We can do more of an intuitively eating style if you have education around nutrition to begin with. But the other thing that you need to think about when you're getting into a deficit phase, if you cannot be consistent, the answer is not dropping your calories or increasing your cardio, right? If you are in a maintenance phase, you can't be consistent with getting all of your training sessions in, sleeping 8 hours, drinking 2 liters of water, and hitting your steps. Why the fuck do you think that dropping your calories and going into a deficit is the solution? That deficit is not going to work because you're not consistent with all of the other things. Like, yes, going into a deficit, we know in order to lose body fat, we need to put our body into a negative energy state, which is where fat loss can actually occur. So reducing our food and increasing our output. But if you reduce your food and you don't increase your output because you can't stick to a step goal and you can't be consistent there, it's like, why do we think that just dropping calories more and more and more and more is going to get you that result? It's not. If I drop my calories to say 1,500, but I'm doing 200 steps a day from my office down to my fridge, back up to my office, I'm probably just going to stay the same weight because I'm not actually expending any energy on the other side. So it's really important before you commit to a deficit, and if you want the deficit to be very successful, look at your levels of consistency. Like, be more consistent and actually prove to yourself before you go into a deficit, you can tick your steps off for at least 4 weeks every day. You can go to the gym for at least 4 weeks and get all your sessions in. You can sleep for 8 hours and fix up your nighttime routine for at least 4 weeks. You can drink 2 liters of water for at least 4 weeks. Then once you've done this and you've built those foundational levels, then you can look at going into a deficit. And that is when the deficit is going to be easier mentally and physically.
In addition to that, to make a deficit feel easier and to be as successful as possible, there's 2 other key things that I think are really important. One of those is being adaptable. And the second of those is being as organized as possible. So if you want to think about being able to tick the boxes and you want to think about following the plan, if you just wing it and hope for the best every week, it's going to feel really hard to do that. So there are little things that you can do that are going to pay off tenfold during the week. Some of those could be the weekly food shop on a Sunday where you prep some of your meals. Some of those could be even just writing out, a couple of recipes that you want to create during the week. Those little habits and behaviors are going to help you stay on track. It could be scheduling in when is it that you're going to walk? When is it that you're going to train? If you put a little bit more effort into planning out how you're going to stick to the plan, it will pay off tenfold. And the second thing is, if you are the kind of girly who is always stuck in this all or nothing mindset, like you've had a good week, awesome. If you have a shit week, you think, what's the point? I'll start again Monday. You need to stop that right now, because the thing that is going to allow you to, 1, stay consistent, and 2, stick at it for long enough to actually see the results you're wanting, is to have the mindset that if something doesn't go to plan. So an example could be you prep all of your meals and you leave them at the fridge at home. So annoying. I'm sure we've all been there, right? Or maybe you didn't train in the morning, you wanted to train after work, and you get to work and you get called into a meeting. Annoying, you can't train. Now, I need you to think of things that are internally within your control and externally outside of your control. So if something's outside of your control, like the meeting, or you're already at work and you can't do anything about it, now I need you to think, what can I do? There is always something you can do. For the training point of view, it could be, all right, I know that I can't train after work, but maybe I could go for a little walk. For food, it can be like, okay, I don't have the food that I prepped, but I know that I want to eat something high protein. I want to eat something whole foods. What do I have access to? Is it for us, going to Coles and throwing together a salad bowl and some tuna? Is it getting takeaway but opting for an option that is, a wrap and protein? Whatever it is, if you can have this mindset, and it comes back to that like unstoppable, I won't be stopped mindset, it's going to take you so much further, because you're not going to treat these like little things that are inevitably going to come up as, oh, what's the point?
It's just like ridiculous. Like when you actually peel that apart of like all or nothing mindset, it's actually ridiculous. It's like if you go to uni and on your first day you're driving to uni, your car breaks down, do you just decide to give up your whole degree? No, you probably just get your car fixed and go back tomorrow, or get on the bus or call an Uber, insert whatever. You become adaptable. And why do the same rules not apply when it comes to your health and fitness, right? You are in that if it's not perfect, I'm not doing it. All or nothing mentality, black and white, can't adapt, can't stick to something, full of excuses. You just don't give a fuck. You don't give a fuck about your health and fitness, and that's okay. But if you can confidently sit there and go, I actually just don't care about my health at all, which I know you're not going to say, then you do care about it. So if you do care about it, then it's like, okay, let's look. What can we start doing today to make small steps to make sure that I get to the goal that I want?
And going back to our own lived experience, so over the last 8 weeks, I have not been a perfect girly. Like what we're saying is what we live and breathe. There have been...
We've drank on the weekends. When did we had alcohol? When did we have alcohol?
Literally last Sunday.
Where were we?
Last Saturday at the event, the Umbra event.
Oh yeah, we drank.
Yeah. But what did we...
It was so fun.
Yeah.
And then the next day we just got back on our bullshit.
You just have to get back into it. There was times during the last 8 weeks where I went away and what we were eating or the place we went to was fully catered. don't have control over what I'm having, don't have control over what I'm choosing. I just basically have to make do with what I've got. There were times when I wanted to go eat something. I think we stayed at a town and all of the places were closed but IGA, and I just kind of put something together. There were times when I didn't have access to the gym, but through the 8 weeks, I just keep asking myself, okay, what's within my control? What can I do? And I've changed it as I've needed to go. Or like you could say, in a perfect world, we train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We're not living in a perfect world. So when things have happened, I've been like, cool, I don't really want to train on the weekends, but I do want to reach my goal. So I'm going to shift my week, and I'm going to have to show up Saturday and Sunday to get it done because it's important to me. And like these things have showed up multiple times: the steps, the training, the nutrition, the other competing priorities, and the overarching theme has just been, what can we do? Do your best. And when possible, tick all of the boxes as much as you can, and that will get you far further than giving up as soon as something doesn't go perfectly to plan.
Yeah, I agree. I also look like, guys, when I was saying before how like I've done multiple deficits over the years and like I've never actually stuck to any and had successful deficits except the last like 2 that I've done. It's because all the other deficits, I just didn't care enough for it. Like I actually just didn't give a fuck. Like I was like, I want to do a deficit, but then I was like, oh, but like I'm not really that committed. I don't really care too much. And like, if that's you right now, like I said before, that's totally fine, but you need to have some level of like, you're wanting to do better. Like we're not here on this podcast talking about a deficit if you're not interested in a deficit, right? So like you have to want to do better and do more. And with that comes being consistent, following the plan, and being adaptable.
We've actually never related to that point before, but I've also done a few since 2019, and now like as in like I've just been like, oh, I'm going to do a phase because I haven't done a fat loss phase for a while and I wanted a new challenge or goal. And I also didn't really follow through with them.
Because you just don't care.
Well, my actual mindset was I wanted a challenge, but I also valued other things above being in a deficit. Like we came out of lockdown, we couldn't eat out all throughout lockdown. We couldn't do social things. We didn't have the social connection. So when it came to actually the thought process of doing a deficit, my mind was actually like, I actually value eating out, experiences, socializing higher, but me acknowledging that is important because
Absolutely.
It's not like I didn't have the skills to execute it. It's just like I actually didn't care. At the moment, we do care. We have it's a bigger priority. Again, we don't spend the whole year in a deficit, and it's a completely different ball game. But I think that it is really important to identify your values and how that aligns with the goals that you set for yourself. Because like Kate said, if you say you want to go through a fat loss phase, but you really value, eating out all the time and this, and this, something has to change in terms of your priorities during this phase. Otherwise, you're going to keep butting heads and you're not going to be compliant. And maybe you do get to the point where you're in this phase and you're like, actually, I don't want to keep going because I'm missing out on these things. That's also okay. Yeah. Like I've done that before. That's fine.
It's like me. I'm going to Japan literally in a couple of days. I'm finishing my deficit and then I'm going to Japan. I'm not reverse dieting. I'm not counting calories. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm going to be swimming in a bowl of ramen, eating all of the sushi I can get my fingers on, and I'm going to be living my best life. And let's just say the person that we're speaking about is wanting to lose 10 kilos. Let's say that's the goal and we're going to have to go into a deficit to lose that. And the reason that they want to lose that 10 kilos is because they don't feel confident anymore. None of their clothes fit them. They've put on this weight. Maybe they've had external reasons for why that this has happened. And they wake up every day genuinely feeling like shit. Okay? That's the reality. If you want a deficit, but you want to lose that 10 kilos, but you also like eating out, you need to sacrifice something in the short term to get the goal and the result that you want, to then be able to have that freedom and flexibility later on, right? So if right now you're actually not happy and you're wanting to lose 10 kilos, it's okay to do that, but you have to accept that you're willing to stick to the deficit, be adaptable. Instead of going out 3 nights a week to eat with your friends, maybe just pull it back to 1 night a week to eat with your friends. Instead of drinking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe only drink on Sunday. Okay, if you're wanting to lose the weight and if that's your goal, you can 100% do that. but it needs to marry up, right? Like you can't be saying, I want to lose the weight, but then you're still going out 6 times a week.
Well, nothing changes and nothing changes. Like in that situation, it's like you want the thing, but you're not willing to change your lifestyle that's put you in the position that has made you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So in that situation, you do need to accept that there will need to be a level of changing of behaviors to get to your desired outcome. The next point I wanted to quickly touch on is just around when you think about a successful deficit. Again, we've spoken about the importance of planning, but I also think it's important to be sustainable in the sense that you're not doing these hectic, low-calorie phases where you're setting yourself up for failure. The example I would say would be if you were going into a fat loss phase and then you didn't have guidance, you're winging it, and you completely avoid carbs and you go super, super low calories and you go super, super high output, like you're not going to last very long. And I like that analogy of like the turtle. Is it the turtle in the hair?
Yeah.
The turtle in the hair. I want you to picture the person who does this really hectic phase for 2 weeks and then they stop because they're miserable, they can't maintain it, they have no energy, they have no mental clarity. The other person who is still sticking to a deficit, but they're still eating a substantial amount of food, they're still functioning well, they're going to get so much further. And I think that that's a really important part. And the second part would be when you go into one of these phases, you can be in a deficit and you can still allow for some chocky. You can still allow for
hot cross buns.
Or a little, those kinds of little sweet treats. If you can work that into the phase, it's going to make it mentally more enjoyable. And secondly, you're going to basically just stick to it and be more adherent. So there is a way, in case you have never, had exposure to this and you only have, consumed content of people that are really extreme. I'm telling you right now that there is a way that you can lose the 5 to 10 kilos while still being able to enjoy some sweet treats, while still being able to eat out with friends within moderation. But it's all about having a plan, a structure, and having that all worked out.
And also as well, the sustainability side of things, right? Now, when we think about being in a deficit, a dieting phase, that is not sustainable. We are not doing that long term. That is not how we live a sustainable lifestyle. But what is sustainable is learning the tools of how to be in a deficit phase, come out of a deficit phase, and then maintain your new weight. If you are going into a really restricted, low calorie, high output, F45 fucking bullshit, sorry, it's the facts. You're doing 1,200 calories, fucking ab burner, slippy sliders on the floor, whatever the fucking rollout thing is, jump, hack, squat bullshit. And then you lose 15 kilos, let's say. Slippy sliders.
What the fuck? Slippy sliders.
You know those fucking dumb shit that they do? Anyways, and then you're on 1,200 calories. Doesn't matter about your weight, doesn't matter about your height, doesn't matter about your training history, doesn't matter about anything. And you're training 7 days a week and you lose 15 kilos, you're not going to be able to sustain that. That's not sustainable. Versus what Gemma was saying, we do something a little bit more conservative. We extend it for a period of time. You learn all of the tools. You feel really well educated, really empowered to then know, okay, when I do lose this 10 kilos, I'm not going to lose it and then put it back on. Then go into this spiral again and have to lose it and put it back on, lose it, put it back on, and then fall into the nothing works. I'm done. I'm giving up.
And I have worked with, and I'm sure you can agree, so many women who unfortunately have had to learn that the hard way. They have done either a challenge that was really aggressive and crazy, or they've done a class, or they've done something that followed online. Like I'm sure we've all been a victim of the BBG guide, Bikini Body Guide.
Yeah.
So we have worked with so many clients who have unfortunately had that experience. So we know hands-on, and this is why we're so passionate about the topic of a sustainable fat loss phase, having a structure, not being too aggressive, because we have honestly seen the after effects of people coming to us and saying, I actually don't know what to eat, or I'm afraid to do this, or I'm afraid to do that, or they're just like stuck in these like extreme cycles. So that's why we're so passionate about it. So if I was to think of like how we could wrap up this episode, I would say the structure and plan is so important. Changing your behaviors are really important to actually be able to adhere to what you're wanting to do. Being as organized as possible and avoiding the whole all or nothing. If you have a slip up or if something happens, throw the baby out with the bathwater, because that is not going to allow you to reach the goal that you're wanting to reach. And you can absolutely have a fat loss phase and get amazing results while still being able to
sustain your results long term.
Sustain your results and not have to be too aggressive.
Absolutely. And that wraps up today's episode, guys. You know what to do. Like, rate the podcast 5 stars, comment if you're on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
See you next week, guys.